Welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout New Vegas, where today we're going to be taking a look at the 9-iron and its unique variant. This is one of the early game melee weapons that you can find. There is one actually very close to Goodsprings, hidden in a shack. There's a couple of these you can find in like the town of Nipton as well. So you can get a couple of these pretty early on. They don't seem to be sold by vendors very often. At least I've never really paid that much attention to 9-irons being sold. And they're not always the most common item for enemies to be carrying. Really about the only enemies that do carry around 9-irons are like the fiends, which they carry around a variety of melee weapons. So this could be an option if you want to run somewhat to New Vegas right away and kill some fiends and get this. Let's go over the stats of the 9-iron. So for the regular 9-iron, which I'm pretty sure the 9-iron in the game isn't even a 9-iron. I'm pretty sure it's a putter. I could be wrong about that though. I don't play golf, so it could be very mistaken there. Tell me if I am down in the comments below. The 9-iron requires 25 melee weapons and 2 strength to wield, making it so that most characters are going to be able to wield this very easily, especially melee characters. So if you want to take this early on, you absolutely can. This does 17 damage per hit, which is fairly low for a melee weapon, especially a two-handed melee weapon, but that's okay. Does 38 damage per second, also kind of low. Not really the highest there either. Does 17 crit damage, which is the same as its regular damage. Has a 1x crit modifier, so nothing crazy there. Costs 22 action points to be using in VATS, which is fine. That's also not really that special. It's not really low either. The 9-iron as well as its unique variant do both have a unique move though for the VATS attack, where every melee weapon does, but this one is specifically unique, called 4. So this one costs quite a bit more action points and does less damage per hit, but it does have guaranteed knockdowns on it. It's very similar to like Mauler, similar to what we talked about with the fire axes, which that's a really, really good attack. That's actually really nice to have, because if you knock an enemy down, that means they're probably not going to be able to fight back. And if it is a one-on-one fight, you can take out just about anything that way with melee. It's also what makes Super Slam so strong with melee too, as well as it does give you some crowd control. This one will give you less since it is tied to the VATS attack, but it will still give you some. The 9-iron weighs 3 weight, and the 9-iron only has 60 item HP. The 9-iron can break really fast, and that's one of its major cons. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this. So the pros are that these are fairly common, at least it's easy to get them into the early game, so that's really cool. Another unique pro to this, besides its VATS attack being unique, it does actually have an achievement tied to it, or at least a challenge tied to it, which is a nice Bioshock reference where you have to kill Mr. House with a 9-iron, whether it be the regular one or the unique one. You get the achievement, I think it's called a slave obeys, since it's part of the reference from Bioshock saying that a man chooses and a slave obeys. Very cool reference there. I really like that about it. For the major cons of the 9-iron though, is that this thing kind of has low stats all the way around. It's not really that crazy. It's okay, but nothing way great. And it also has very low item HP. These things break really fast, which is not really good for a melee weapon, especially in the early game if you want to be using it there. 9-irons can be a little bit difficult to come by. Once you have jury rigging, this isn't an issue because you can fix it with any two-handed melee weapon. But in the early game, just looking around for 9-irons isn't going to be the easiest thing in the world. So usually I don't end up going with the 9-iron. If I'm going to go with a two-handed melee weapon early, I'll probably go with something like the shovel, and then swap that out for something like a baseball bat as soon as I can buy one of those. And then I'll just go from there, assuming I'm not going to be rushing any of the unique variants of weapons either. 9-iron isn't really high up on my priority list. There are a couple of perks that help out with this, that help out with all melee weapons and make melee really strong. Super Slam's really good, since it makes it so you can knock down enemies, and if you knock them down, you can beat them up really easy. Slayer's really good because it gives you increased attack speed, so that's nice on any melee weapon. Piercing Strike gives you armor breaking, really good. And Purifier makes it so that you can deal extra damage towards mutated enemies like Deathclaws, Super Mutants, Centaurs, I guess. A couple other ones too, so that one can be pretty nice. Aside from that, there's no other perk that really helps us besides Pack Rat. Pack Rat actually does affect the unique version of it because the unique version weighs less than 2 weight. The regular 9-iron weighs 3. So for an overall rating for the 9-iron, I would honestly just put this thing into like D tier. I just don't use it that much. I don't think it's a terrible melee weapon. You can still get some value out of it. And if you wanted to do a full playthrough of just the golf clubs, I don't think it would be that difficult. But the regular 9-iron I'm really not going for. The health is really low on it, the damage is okay. I'd rather just go with something like the shovel that you can get right in Goodsprings and just use that. Or again, go out and buy like a baseball bat that's going to have way higher health and just better stats all the way around and can be modded. Let's talk about the unique version. This is Nephi's Golf Driver. This one does look a little bit different. You can see that the head on this one looks different than the regular 9-iron, and I think that this might be a 9-iron, or maybe this is a wedge or something. Again, don't play golf, so I don't really know what each of these things are. If you do know, tell me in the comments below. Maybe these are both 9-irons and I'm just oblivious to it. But Nephi's Golf Driver is held by driver Nephi, who you will find associated with the Fiends, and he is in New Vegas, or at least around New Vegas. He is one of the Fiend leaders, and if you kill him, then you can take this off of his body. So you will need to do that, or I guess you could reverse pickpocket him and take it. There's no real reason to not kill him unless you're doing a pacifist run, though. So you might as well do that. He is one of the 3 Fiend leaders that you get in the 3-card bounty, and one of their severed heads that you can actually take. So try not to mess up his head too much. Go over the body shots, rip his chest apart, and then take his head off so that way you get the most amount of caps out of this. Nephi's Golf Driver also requires 25 melee weapons and 2 strength to wield, same as the regular 9-iron. This one does quite a bit more damage, doing 30 damage per hit, which is actually pretty decent. That's not too bad for a 2-handed melee weapon. This one does 68 damage per second, also not too bad, not one of the highest ones, especially once we just looked at the fire axe, where the fire axes are both much better than this, but still decent enough. Does 30 crit damage, which is okay. Has an above average crit modifier of 1.2 times, so not a massive amount of crit chance, but still better than normal. Costs 21 action points, so 1 less action point than the regular one. This one only weighs 1 weight, which is kind of cool because that's why pack rat affects it, so it gets cut in half to just half of a weight, which is kind of funny because you would think at like half a weight melee weapon you could sneak this into areas. You can't sneak, I don't think, any 2-handed melee weapon into any area, so the golf club isn't that either. And this one has even lower item HP than the 9-iron. This one only has 50 HP, so it breaks even faster, and that can be even more annoying. This one does have substantially better stats and feels much better than the regular 9-iron, but it's still just, it breaks so quick that it's just not super practical. Again, later on, it can be if you have jury rigging or if you have a bunch of weapon repair kits. Let's say you have jury rigging, then you can get pool cues and fix this up, or any 2-handed melee weapon and fix this up. And it doesn't weigh very much, so it's not a terrible thing to be carrying around. But at the same time, if you want a lightweight melee weapon, there are things like combat knives and Bowie knives that are just frankly better than this, so it's also just not a fantastic weapon. It's not terrible by any means though, and I actually enjoy using it. So Nephi's Golf Driver, I think I'd actually put up in a B tier. I think it's still okay, but if you want a 2-handed melee weapon, going with something like the Fire Axe, the Proton Axe, the Super Sledge, Chainsaw, and Thermic Lance would all be better options than Nephi's Golf Driver. Even something like the modded out Baseball Bat would be better because it doesn't break and has kind of better stats than this. So you do have better options than this, and if you want something lightweight, again, the knives, the War Club, something like that is just going to be better for a one-handed weapon, and especially if you want something that you could sneak in. So it doesn't really fit too well, but it's not terrible either. Would I recommend the 9-iron and Nephi's Golf Driver? 9-iron, probably not so much. I don't think it's really that good. Even in the early game, you can find better stuff than this. Nephi's Golf Driver, if you like it, sure, it's decent enough, and if you want to carry it around, that's cool. Tell me your thoughts on the 9-iron and Nephi's Golf Driver down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.